In 1901, divers off the coast of a tiny Greek island called Antikythera found a shipwreck. It was filled with bronze statues, jewelry, and luxury goods, but among the treasure was a green, calcified lump of corroded metal. For 50 years, scientists ignored it. They thought it was just a rock, a piece of junk. They were wrong. When they finally put this rock under an X-ray, they didn't find a statue. They found gears. Precision-cut bronze gears interlaced with a complexity that shouldn't have existed for another 1,500 years. This is the Antikythera Mechanism. It is the world's first analog computer, and today we're going to look at the math inside it, because the math is actually more impossible than the machine itself. Imagine finding a working iPhone in the tomb of a pharaoh. That is the level of wrong we're dealing with here. Before this discovery, historians believed that complex gearing, the kind you find in a Swiss watch, was invented in the 14th century, but this device dates back to roughly 150 BC. That is a 1,500-year gap in human technology. It's as if humanity learned to fly, forgot how for a millennium, and then had to reinvent the wing. But what was it actually doing? Initially, researchers thought it was a simple clock. But as imaging technology got better, they realized it wasn't tracking hours or minutes, it was tracking the universe. On the front dial, you had the Greek zodiac and the Egyptian calendar. On the back, two large spiral dials. But the magic wasn't on the outside, it was the math in the metal on the inside. Let's get into the gears. This is where it gets legendary. The main drive wheel turned once per year. But as it turned, it drove a series of smaller gears. To calculate the movement of the moon, the Greeks needed to represent a very specific ratio. See, the moon doesn't orbit the Earth in a perfect 30-day cycle. It follows what we call a Metonic Cycle. The Greeks knew that 235 lunar months fit almost perfectly into 19 solar years. To build a machine that displays this, you need a gear with exactly 235 teeth. Have you ever tried to hand-cut 235 perfect microscopic teeth into a bronze disc using only a chisel and a file? The margin for error is 0. One slip and the computer crashes. But it gets crazier. The moon's orbit isn't a perfect circle. It speeds up and slows down because its orbit is elliptical. This is called lunar anomaly. We didn't think the ancients understood this, but the Antikythera mechanism proves they did. Inside the machine, there are two gears, one pinned slightly off-center to the other. As they turn together, one gear pushes the other at a variable speed. This is mechanical calculus. It's a physical representation of an equation that mimics the moon's changing velocity in the sky. When modern engineers saw this under X-ray, they were speechless. They were looking at a hardware version of a sine wave. So you have the moon, the sun, and the 5 known planets all being tracked, but the back of the device held a darker purpose. The lower spiral on the back is called the Saros dial. It tracks a 223-month cycle used to predict eclipses. But it didn't just say when an eclipse was coming. The inscriptions on the machine, tiny Greek letters only 2 millimeters tall, actually told the user what color the eclipse would be and what direction the wind would blow during it. To the ancients, an eclipse wasn't just a shadow, it was an omen. This machine allowed a king or a general to predict the future with the turn of a hand crank. And here's the first major twist. There is a tiny dial inside the Saros cycle that tracks the Olympiads. Yes, the Olympic Games. This machine was so advanced, it could track the movement of the gods and the schedule of a sports tournament simultaneously. It was the ultimate smartwatch of the ancient world. Who could have done this? The shipwreck was headed to Rome, but the machine is distinctly Greek. For years, one name has topped the list of suspects: Archimedes. History tells us Archimedes built a planetarium that showed the motions of the sun and moon. For centuries, historians thought that story was a legend, but the Antikythera mechanism proves that the tech was real.
However, there's a problem. Archimedes died in 212 BC. The shipwreck happened around 60 BC. If this was his work, it was an heirloom, a piece of lost tech even to the people who were carrying it on that ship. It suggests that there wasn't just one of these. There might have been an entire industry of ancient Silicon Valleys in Rhodes or Corinth that we simply lost to time. The most haunting thing about the Antikythera mechanism isn't what it is, it's what it represents. It's a reminder that human progress isn't a straight line. We don't always get smarter. Sometimes we reach the pinnacle of science, and then we forget. If this machine hadn't been lost to the sea, if the Greeks had continued to develop this level of gear math, the Industrial Revolution might have happened in 100 AD instead of 1700. We would have been walking on Mars before the Middle Ages even began. The next time you look at your phone or a mechanical watch, remember the green rock from the bottom of the ocean. The ancients weren't just building temples, they were coating the universe in bronze. If you want to see more impossible ancient tech, check out our video on the 100-ton boxes of Egypt. And don't forget to subscribe. We're exploring history era